The SP 500 and the Nasdaq 100. We're going to break this down. We have CPI coming in tomorrow, one of the biggest data pulls, and this is going to give us a clear-cut answer going into what exactly is going to happen at that next Fed meeting, a 0.25 or a 0.5 to come out next regarding rate hikes. Let's get right to it. Now, there's a few things that happened on the day, and there's a few things that are going to happen tomorrow, obviously. Now, first thing I want to say before we even dive too far into this, I'm going to give you the juicy stuff first. Right now, what do I expect? Personally, again, if you follow me on Twitter, what do we have going on here? Again, we posted this. This is JP Morgan's game plan on CPI, their expectations, what they think is going to happen. If you come in below a print of 6.4, you have about 3 to 4% of upside. You come in between 6.4 to 6.6, probably around 6.5, which is the expectation. You have about 2% to the upside. And if you come up above a 6.6, they expect downside. Anything above 6.6. So anything that's not a strong beat. Okay, now that's what JP Morgan says. So where do I think we're going to come in at? Now, based on demand, based on everything that's happening right now with wage growth slowing down, it has not dropped, but it has slowed. It has slowed. What do I think is going to happen? This is just my pure gut guess, okay? I still think data is going to be on the side of the Fed. I think data will support it. I just struggle to know if we're going to come down to 6.5. That's just my gut. But if I look right now at the biggest factors that were holding CPI up before, it was a lot of still with energy to a certain extent, but really it was the rent prices. And I believe rents have dropped, and that's going to be the biggest factor into this. However, a few things on the grocery list as far as eggs, there's one of the biggest things going on right now, have risen. So I do think I'm going to be bold here. I'm going to come out with a 6.5 to 6.6 print tomorrow. That's my opinion. I do think it's possible, though. I'm going to tell you right now. I think it's possible to come out at a 6.4 or below. I do want to say that right now. However, I don't think this trend of big drops for CPI will continue for much longer. I think those days are going to be coming to an end very quick. But before we get into any more content, I ask you to do two things: like and subscribe. I post videos for you every single day here on the channel, so you know what to expect as far as news and then the unbiased opinion when it comes to the market, whether I'm right, whether I'm wrong. I want to tell you right now, I have nothing on the market. I am sitting liquid. I am waiting for this. I want the price action to come back, get back into a clear trend, and I want to trade that. So again, I want to be as transparent as possible with you. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you're going to get all my charts. You're going to get responses from me. I can just post basically all day on there also. So you're going to get everything basically from YouTube, but it's going to be on there so you can just use it for information if you want to have it. Let's get to the video. So right now, what are we looking at on NQ? A few things we said yesterday. A few bullish aspects. We mounted that previous level, and then we were kind of making higher lows from there, and then we kind of just continued that flow into today, and we started pushing up and breaking. Now, a few things here on the 4-hour. Again, this video is going to be very short. So we have a 4-hour supply that we broke through finally. We broke through that, we pushed above, and now we're mounting and pushing towards local highs, which if you remember, we broke down through this, came and retested, boom, dropped. So around 11.49. I think we're going to try to get a test of that before the end of the day or maybe even in the after hours. But I think that's going to be tested before CPI. Personal opinion, either tonight, early tomorrow morning, that will be tested before CPI in my opinion. ES, what's happening here? You've broken through basically everything. Your supply you had here. You had a small supply also here. You broke through. You're pushing towards your next one. And this one is the big boy, if you will. We mentioned this yesterday. Right about here, we're going to bring that all the way to the highs just so you have it right there. And I want to show you a few things that are going on here. So we're going to go to the daily chart really quick. I'm going to pull up the indicators. And as you can see, this is the 200 SMA, your 200 moving average on the daily time frame. What's so important about this level? Let's get rid of some of these other previous drawings so we don't have to look at their ugliness as we get in here. Few things. Let's talk about it. One, we have our daily trend, or our trend basically since last, since this overall, bottom started to kind of play out, right? It's clearly there, right there. We're coming back into about to touch it, okay? And we're actually doing it right now. We have been below the 200 MA. We have not been able to hold it on multiple daily time frames since essentially last April, okay? We got below it. We've rejected once, twice, 3, 4, got above it here, came back down within a day and a half, rejected again, and then now we're there right now. Coincidentally, going into this massive data pool, okay? So what's going to happen here? If we can, again, if we mount above the 200 MA, my opinion stays the same. I have to be a very big bull. That has to be my opinion. That has to be my outlook. And that's where I'd be expecting us. And we're also coming into that 4,000 supply on ES. So if we go back to the 4-hour time frame, as you can see here, it's going to be a big level. So again, viewpoints for tomorrow if CPI comes out good. And again, these charts will all be on Twitter, so make sure you follow on there. We'll be looking for a push up to 4,100. And basically, again, I was talking about this on the live stream earlier. I want to talk about how limited we are, in my opinion. Okay, this is just my personal opinion on what's happening right now. Hypothetically, we come out with a great data pool, and this is why I'm liquid. Even if I'm right and we come out with a great print and CPI comes down and inflation's good and we have a 0.25 coming up, what's the upside here? Do I think we're going to go parabolic to the upside and say, oh, the bottom's in? I don't. We still have earnings coming up, and we all know my opinion on those earnings. So in my opinion, our upside here is limited to roughly 12.2 on Nasdaq. Now, that's a lot of upside. Don't get me wrong. That is still plenty of upside. We can make money on that, and I plan to make money on it if the good news comes. But I'm the type of guy that's going to sit on the sideline, wait for the data to print, and then trade the trend from there. That's how I make my money. And again, I just don't want to just keep risking at this point. I've just been risking, and it just doesn't make any sense for me here. So I like that. If we get above this, 12.2 is my target. It's, again, about 800 points of upside from this point right now. That's a lot. On ES, you have about 130 points from here. I anticipate you would test 4,100 tomorrow if CPI comes out great. That's my personal opinion. I would have to assume that gets tested, okay? But going from there, I'm not confident if we're going to break out of this trend. And like I've said before, if there's a sign that we're actually quote-unquote bottoming, I think tech has to lead the rally. I think the Nasdaq will have to be the forerunner to really get us going, just like it did back in June, like it did back in the original bounce we had in March and February. I think Nasdaq has to take the lead, and I just don't see that happening yet unless earnings start to really print. So I think a lot of things have to happen in a row, but we need to just be ready for all cases to come out here, and that's what I'm looking at there. So again, I don't want to confuse anybody. I want to just state my opinion right now. Again, and I'm not even super confident right now on my viewpoint of what's going to happen from the CPI report just because of everything happening right now. I think we could even see a separation, like we mentioned on the live stream with Cajun. I think a separation could come from core CPI and normal CPI. And I think there could be a big shift. And if that happens, how does the Fed respond to that? So these are all things we need to be watching and really taking our time with. But what I can say is that big banks have been putting their money on the downside. Okay. So even if we get an upside push, I still don't believe the bottom is in. Okay. That's my personal opinion. I still think there's downside among us. I think this is ultimately just setting up for a downside position for myself. And I just want to clarify all of this. This is probably one of the more important videos. And I just don't want people to get taken or get faked out from any of this type of move. So just be vigilant. Be patient most of all here, because this is going to be a very big next 24 hours here on the market specifically. Just remember also, we had a CPI print back here in December. It was a great print. We pushed up, broke, and then we immediately dropped. I'm not saying that the same thing's going to happen, but anything can happen at this point. What I will say, over the next 24, 48 hours, what you're going to see, if CPI comes out good, you're going to actively see a pricing in of a 0.25 rate hike. That's going to happen almost instantaneously, in my opinion, based on the Fed fund futures. Okay, so you need to understand that. So you're going to have two really mega bullish things happening at the same time. I just don't know if that can last and hold you through earnings. So we have to see what happens from earnings. As of right now, I think the big names, Amazon, Apple, I think those are going to get crushed during earnings. Apple just posted yesterday on Twitter, their sales from their app store are down. They're reporting overall down there. Demand for their products also down. They've reduced their overall production. Now they have looked into new plants. That's important to realize. Maybe this is just them preparing to shift into another country. Possible. But I just got to say what's being shown to us now. We're also seeing massive layoffs across the board, specifically again with banks. Consumer credit, if we look at that also, what is the going interest rate on these credit cards? They're upwards of 20% now. So I think the default rate on that could start to rise also. These are just my concerns, what I'm looking at. I think short-term data could be great, okay? Short-term, I'm going to trade the trend up if it comes out good. But I want people to be conscious of what's going to happen over the next 3 to maybe 5 months is I do expect downside. I don't think this is just the soft landing coming in right now. Understand the difference between short and long term. There's a difference, people. You need to understand the trend and then the small pivot that we may be getting on the market right now. And when I say pivot, I'm not talking about a Fed pivot. It's what we've been talking about the whole time. Up, these regular pivots that we've seen, okay? But right now we're hitting the top of this trend. I can't be long here. I have to wait for this to print. Right now, again, you're seeing, as I've been making the video, Nasdaq has gone up another 30 points. And again, you're probably going to test very soon that 1149. That's why I see us testing before the either pre-market or after hours today. It's going to happen very soon. It's looking like it's going to happen right now. Bulls are stacking in, and they're definitely taking advantage of this. I also believe we've seen a lot of short covering, so we need to be just prepared that maybe that's what's happening here also. So again, this isn't your typical me giving you a lot of charts that I like and things that I'm looking at in the market. This is really me just trying to warn you and just say, be careful. And when the data comes out, trade the trend. Do not fight the trend. Very short video. I'll see you tomorrow.